Hello, I'm Dylan.
And I'm Keon.
And this is Trust Your Doctor, that podcast that's just a tour through the BBC prop studio, because this week we watched Keys of Marinus.
Written by Terry Nation.
Directed by John Gorey.
And aired from April 11th to May 16th, 1964. Exactly, what would it be? Oh, God, I can't do 657 years ago? It's April 10th today.
Yeah, we're recording this on April 10th. This episode will release on April 18th. So, yeah, 57 years ago.
Wild.
And this is the only story directed by John Gorey, although the TARDIS wiki says that he may have directed without on-screen credit the third episode of Reign of Terror, when the assigned director for that piece took ill and collapsed during recording.
Oh, God.
However, Gorey claimed in later years to have no memory of working on the Reign of Terror, so it's possible that the director may have been someone else.
Maybe he was just like that guy from Troll 2 who was like, yeah, I have no memory of working on this movie. The guy who they just, like, who was in that, like, asylum nearby, or the mental hospital nearby, and they got him for the movie. Do you remember that? Or no, was that he said he didn't realize he was acting or something like that. I forget what it was.
The BBC just like going out onto the street and finding the man who's been playing the bongos for the incidental music and being like, I need you to direct the third episode of Reign of Terror.
Well, this isn't obviously this is not the only story that Terry Nation wrote.
But it is his best one.
It is one of his
No, I take that.
best
I mean, I
ones.
take that back. That's not a serious statement because Genesis of the Daleks, obviously, but
Yeah, Genesis of the Daleks is probably like the best thing of Terry Nation's career as far as I know.
I mean, Terry Nation had some real high highs and some real low lows.
Yeah.
Terry Nation was all over the place.
Yeah, but it's interesting, coming back and watching Keys of Marinus, 7 years later, almost, probably exactly. I think we probably watched this around this time in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
And just, coming back after having watched Blake 7 and other Terry Nation things, it's wild that, like, yeah, we can see so much of the seeds of, like, he was planting these seeds early on. Like, the Blake 7 teleport bracelet is from Keys of Marinus, right? Like, they have the, like, that's what it is. They have teleport bracelets.
I mean, again, writers only have, 6 stories they just tell over and over and over again. And I was going to mention this at the end, but part of the reason why this story is so successful is because it's actually 5 different stories in one story. We move locations the whole time, and Terry Nation repeats this pattern, if I remember correctly, in Genesis of the Daleks. Like, on the first episode, we were just on the front, and then we were, like, on the Thal side of the war, then we were on the college side of the war, and then we're back and forth. The whole 6 episodes, we're back and forth. We're never in the same place. So
yeah, and he would repeat it even before Genesis of the Daleks with The Chase as well. Another story that was just yeah. And we were just talking, like,
which is like the best first Dr. Dalek story. Fight me. I'll die on that hill.
Wow. Yeah, I don't agree with that whatsoever. But so we were just talking about this before we started recording, but it's like, when Terry Nation turned in this script, how many people do you think saw this and were like, God, this could have been 5 different stories, but he just crammed them all into one. The exact opposite of what he did in Blake 7, where he didn't have enough material and drew everything out.
Yeah, I just imagine David Whittaker, who was script editor at the time, like, getting the script on his desk and just, like, looking at Terry and being like, you could have just written, like, 5 different stories, right? You know that we could have just split this 6-parter into, like, 2 3-part stories, and you could have just fleshed out 2 of these plots, right? And Terry going, yes, but I didn't want to do that. And David just going,
It's for the best, though. I as much as I enjoyed the Screaming Forest or whatever it was called and the Snows of Terror, like imagining those being drawn out to 4 or 6 parters is agonizing. Just imagining it's agonizing. So imagine like having to sit through it.
No, and I really liked rewatching this story. I almost just watched all 6 episodes straight through in one sitting. I was invested from the word go. I got 4 episodes in, and I was like, no, I gotta pace myself, because I'm watching Lex this week too. So I'll put the next 2 episodes on tomorrow. That way I don't have to start Lex tomorrow. That was my thinking.
Check out Inevitable, a classic sci-fi podcast where we were watching the truly agonizing Lex.
I deeply apologize to everybody who likes Lex, but we just don't. And if you want to hear our thoughts on it, yeah, check out Inevitable.
I don't deeply apologize to the people who like Lex.
You shallowly apologize, right?
No, I don't apologize at all. I just think it's a bad show.
You apologize to yourself for watching
for believing that others' opinions could hold sway over mine. Yeah, really not coming across as a great guy here. So let's just move on. The Keys of Marinus. It begins where every good story begins, on Marinus.
I thought you were going to say, with the Doctor and co. fumbling around the TARDIS like bluttering old fools who don't know what they're doing.
Well, the beginning is actually interesting because this is, I think, one of the only times in Classic Who where we get the interior of the TARDIS from like an angle that isn't door on the left, door to the rest of the TARDIS on the right. You know the angle. Everyone knows the angle.
The angle. Yeah, the angle. Yeah.
Well, this time the door's behind them. Nice change of pace there. The view screen is in front of them, so we don't see it.
That's actually something that Chris Chibnall's been doing really well, or the directors that he hires, is that we've basically almost never seen the angle in the 13th Doctor's era. Just think about it. We've never actually seen really many times the angle.
Well, New Who doesn't really do it at all, does it? I mean, like...
Well, the 10th Doctor did, for sure. Yeah, 9th and 10th Doctor, because they only built that half of the set.
Yeah. Yeah, so much of, like, looking back, so much of the 10th, 9th, 10th, and 11th, pretty much, are just blurs to me. Like, I remember the 12th pretty well, but, like, oof. That, the rest of New Who, not so much. So we went through it really damn fast, but anyway...
We also get a hilarious, mildly fourth wall breaking moment where Barbara turns to the Doctor and goes, "Don't you have like a colored television in here?" And the Doctor goes, "Yes." And Barbara goes, "Well, where is it then? Like, can't we see the outside?" And he just goes, it's being repaired."
He just points.
I totally have color TV.
Why is that fourth wall breaking?
Because it's all in black and white.
Oh, I guess.
And like, even if it was color TV in the universe, it would still look black and white to the audience. So like, why is it even worth mentioning that it's color TV unless it's a weird wink and a nudge to the audience? But
or
anyway.
A weird wink and nudge to like, I don't know if this is true or not, but something that I've always heard was that people bought color TVs for the moon, to watch the moon landing in color, and then it was in black and white, and they were just like, oh man.
Oh man.
Oh shucks.
Heavens.
But I don't know if it's true or not. No, it's not.
It's not.
I was there.
The moon is actually black and white.
Yeah, color is only on Earth. Once you leave the atmosphere.
Once you leave the atmosphere, everything just goes black and white.
Yeah.
So all those color pictures from the Hubble Space Telescope, fake.
Yeah, they were just colored, like sometimes classic Doctor Who is colorized, you know.
They're actually, actually some of the pictures taken by the Hubble Space Telescope are like false color because they're actually taken in like the X-ray or the infrared or the ultraviolet bands, which are not visible wave spectrums. So they just kind of assign a color scheme to those wavelength bands. So some of the images are false colors.
Well, I feel cheated. I've never even looked at the images, yet I feel lied to and wronged.
Well, I'm not sorry.
Okay, that's probably a good thing since it wasn't really your fault.
Well, anyway, Ian's still wearing his, like, cultural appropriation robe from Marco Polo,
Oh my god.
and he will wear it for the whole 6 episodes.
Wow. I mean, they probably gave him that, right?
I don't remember the
Marco
plot of
Polo
Marco
all that
Polo
well,
at
but
all. Except that Tagana was in it.
and that he
And
was
that Tagana
great.
was the villain of the story.
They wind up on this island. You know, that's actually, I think, one of the first things that we, as the audience, see is that they're on this sort of small-looking island with a big mountain in the background.
Right.
Which they don't notice the towering mountain at the center of the island until like 15 minutes in. I guess they just didn't look in that direction.
The Doctor has a hilarious line here. So, I think Susan points at something, like the lake, because the lake is so still, and she's like, is it frozen? And he says, no, that's impossible in this temperature. Plus, it's too warm, which is just like the second half of that sentence is the same thing as the first half of that sentence, but in different words. I just found that really funny for some reason.
Yeah. Well, they have some more, I don't know, troubles of the aqueous nature or something, because like they go to these tide pools and there's sharp rocks all over the place, so I believe it's Susan has to go back and change into boots or something.
Yeah, because she burns her socks in the goddamn tide pool.
Right, because that's how they figure out that the ocean is acid.
Yeah, and they're like, if you had had shoes on, you wouldn't be in like so much pain from stepping in the acid or something like that.
Meanwhile, a few people who are prepared for the acid or not, as we see in just a minute, show up in sick, personal submersibles.
That are made of like plexiglass and look so fragile that if you breathe on them, they're going to fall apart.
Well, they don't look watertight at all.
No. There's also the fact that on this island, you can see the back studio wall, which is fine. I don't think that's a bad thing. I just thought it was funny. It's like, oh, there's the back studio wall that's clearly been painted like white so that it looks like the horizon or something.
No, and I mean, that's obviously the case for all 6 of these episodes. They're really low budget, as Doctor Who was at the time, and, they're almost laughable to watch in 2021, where it's especially the Screaming Forest, where it's just like, yeah, shake some fake vines around the screen and pretend it's a jungle, like, yeah. But there's as a charm to it, and I actually thought a lot of the episode looked better, like the Vord, for example. I mean, I don't think we see them now, but we do in just a minute in the plot. I remember them looking so much worse than they actually did.
Yeah, I remember them looking just terrible. Turns out they don't. Turns out they look actually pretty good. I mean, to be fair, they are just like commercial wetsuits with helmets that they built, but like,
yeah,
it still works.
Yeah, it works. It definitely works. The helmet sells it,
So, Ian... So, okay, wait. Before Ian does that, they find a Vord, and he's been stabbed. And they're like, shoot, this Vord is dead. They don't know it's a Vord, but
like dissolved by the...
dead.
I thought it was dissolved by the acid. Like some acid got, like its suit wasn't watertight and it died.
I mean, there's
right?
that's like part of it, but his suit has a hole in it, I think, because he's been stabbed. And I think that's why the suit is not watertight, because the fact that he's stabbed is like why they think something weird is going on here, and not just like, oh shoot, he died in an accident. They're like, they think that he's been killed by someone, which turns out it's true. The Void was killed by Altos. Well, not by Altos, by
By Arbitan?
yes, Arbitan, who is currently in a bout of fisticuffs with another Void. And Ian sees this and just runs in and starts beating on the Void because, like, I guess at the moment Ian came in, the Void had the upper hand in the battle. Like, seeing a Void who's already been stabbed, you kind of have to wonder why Ian already assumed the Void is the bad guy. But hey.
I guess it all works out in the end. This is after they've gotten to the temple. There's this scene where they kind of are trying to figure out how to get into the temple, which I remember, back in the day, back in 2014, I remember sort of scenes like this, ones where they're just kind of deliberating and, I don't know, just meandering about, like, I would be like, man, like, just get to the point, like, come on. But this time around, like, I really enjoyed them for some reason. Maybe I've just been Stockholmed into liking old Doctor Who in entirety.
Yeah, maybe.
but for so much of this, I was just like, yes, this is great. We need more of this, and Modern Who should be closer to this.
Yeah, with Susan getting sucked into the wall and everyone going, "Where's Susan?" Turn into the audience. Can you at home find Susan?
Imagine like a version of Doctor Who that was like, Dora the Explorer or whatever. Those kids that turn to the audience and are like, "All right, how are we going to cross this bridge? Like, can we use this avocado or do we use like this other bridge that's right over there?"
Yeah. The snows of terror, just like, how are we going to get back across this bridge? Should we use this rope or this block of ice?
Well, yeah, they eventually all reconvene, and Arbitan gives them the lowdown. He tells them the situation.
He's like, so I built this machine that can control people's minds. And you know what I really appreciate about this episode? Which I don't actually appreciate it in the episode. I just appreciate that people seem to have somewhat ignored this. But the Doctor has absolutely no qualms at this point about a machine that just controls people's minds, doesn't allow them to think for themselves, tells them how to think, is judge, jury, and executioner in every trial held on the planet, and that they've been tasked with, in fact, retrieving the pieces to make this machine work so that the guy can just control people's minds again. The Doctor doesn't ask any questions. He's just like, you know what? That sounds like a great idea. Controlling people's minds, I'm in.
Yeah, and so I had the same reaction. So when Arbitan first said that, I was like, if I didn't know any better, I would 110% assume that he was going to be a villain at the end. Like, that's what this seems to be setting up.
The other thing that this episode doesn't even touch on is that the Void, the only bad thing we see them do is try to kill Arbitan, which, in hindsight, do you blame them? Arbitan has built a machine that he's going to use to take over the Void's minds so that they can't, like, have any free will at all. And that's, like, the only crime we see the Void commit in this episode is trying to stab and succeeding at stabbing Arbitan. But then at the end, they're, like, trying to get the machine for themselves for unknown purposes. And I guess they become the villain at the end because they have to be.
Yeah, that's just going to be my, headcanon or theory from now on, is that the Voids were really the heroes here. And that Arbitan was, obviously, I mean, in a way it's not a headcanon that he was trying to re-enslave them.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's just like, this setup raises a lot of questions that the story never slows down to answer, probably for the better. But it's just like there's so much left open about Marinus society that we don't know. We get all these different locations, and it's like, is the planet one singular society? Do these people know? Obviously, to some extent, they know about Yartek and Arbitan, but how much do they know? Are they all speaking the same language? Are they all in the same country? Presumably not, because they have various mentions about different countries and stuff, but like, we just don't know.
Yeah, I mean, not only that, like clearly not everyone knows about Arbitan. Clearly just like 2 or 3 people in every location are like, oh yeah, Arbitan, I know that crazy old guy living on that island in the middle of the acid ocean. I know that guy.
Yeah, and it's like Arbitan 2, like the castle or the pyramid or whatever it is like, it's a villain lair. That's exactly what it is. He's in the middle of an acidic ocean all alone on a super secret hidden island with a machine that controls people's minds. Like, it's exactly what it is.
And the best part is the doctor like makes none of these observations. He just goes, all right, we'll help you. Well, he actually goes, well, we won't help you. But then Arbitan traps them outside their TARDIS, and this too doesn't key them into Arbitan just being like a villain, because then they're like, all right, fine, I guess we'll help you, instead of just, I don't know, like capturing Arbitan and getting the key to the force field back. Like, instead they decide to take the much more difficult option of going on a journey across like 4 different continents on this planet to get these keys for this machine.
But that's okay, because it introduces us to Terry Nation introducing us to the concept of the teleport bracelet, which obviously became, as we talked about before, a big thing in Blake 7. So he gives them these teleport bracelets, travel dials, they're called in the story. And these bracelets are going to take them in order to each of the remaining keys.
Right. He programs in a sequence of locations into the bracelets. They can only go forward and not back along the sequence, so that seems like an oversight. But they're like,
or
all
not.
right.
I wonder how many people Arbitan like sent on this journey and potentially failed, like maybe he had
Clearly
a whole like
none,
lineup of
because all of the keys were in their original location, even the first one.
Yeah, maybe they just failed at the first one.
I mean, to be fair, the first one is the like most insidious and difficult challenge, which is the morphos just taking over your mind.
Yeah.
Like, after that, everything's kind of downhill in terms of difficulty. Especially the last one, which just dumps you in the room that the key is in.
Yeah, and the people who commit the crime... Okay, we'll get there. They're so quick to give themselves and each other up. They're really quick. All right, we'll get there. Because first we have to discuss the first location.
Right, Morphoton.
Is that what it was called?
It's the home of the Morphos, Morphoton.
Oh yeah,
or something like that.
Wow, yeah, it's Morphoton.
Did you not believe me? So you went to the TARDIS wiki?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, I thought
Altos says explicitly that they're in the city of Morphoton.
Yeah, but he doesn't say it enough that like you remember.
I put it in my notes.
Well, I didn't, so that's why I didn't remember.
That's why you didn't believe me.
Everything seems hunky-dory at first, First Barbara, she teleports first, so she seems to be missing at first, and they find her, and she's living this lavish lifestyle. She was only, 3 minutes ahead of them, but she's already, queen of the castle here. They're waiting on her hand and foot. She's eating, grapes. And they're just like, hey, pretty sweet deal here, Barbara. Would suck if this was all just a sinister trap. And she's like, yeah, it would suck. Luckily, that's not what it is.
So they're all like, well, I guess we can have whatever we want here, right? And she's like, yep, just tell them what you want and they'll get it for you.
This was really funny. So Susan asks for a dress, and she's really eager, and she's like, she really wants this dress, and the doctor's like, now, Susan, like, we can't go imposing on people. And then, like, not 15 seconds later is like, well, if you insist, I'd like a lab with every scientific, like, instrument known to man.
And they're like, fine, we can do that.
You were getting mad over a dress, and that's what you want. I don't know. I found it funny.
I mean, yeah, yeah. They just go, no, you can, like, take whatever you want. And he's like, oh, well, when you put it that way.
Yeah. They all go to sleep eventually, and we see them being drugged or hypnotized. Except it doesn't work on Barbara.
It's because the method by which they get hypnotized is that, what's her name? Sabitha comes in and just puts a little disc on your head, and then just, like, while you're asleep, that disc just, like, brainwashes you, but the disc, like, falls off of Barbara and, like, wakes her up, and she's like, what the hell is going on here? And she sees Sabitha putting the discs on Ian and Susan, and then she goes back to bed.
Yeah, maybe people on Morphoton just don't roll over in their sleep. So this is just like a new challenge that they have to overcome.
Yeah, like, what do they do with people who, like, I don't know, sleep face down?
Who knows? They don't take the time, obviously, to address any of these potential questions because the story's just full speed ahead from here on out. It obviously doesn't work on Barbara, so she sees the truth for what it is. She sees that the dress they gave Susan is actually just a tattered rag. She sees that the room that they're in is actually just like a dump.
Yeah, it's just a dump. We get this amazing, first of its kind in Doctor Who, point of view shot from Barbara's point of view, where everybody's talking to her, and Susan's like, look, they brought me my dress, and Barbara, in this really aggressive tone, I might add, just goes, it just rags!
What if what they originally saw was like the truth, and the devices actually... Well, okay, never mind. We don't have to go down that rabbit hole. That's some fan fiction material that probably doesn't exist. Never mind. Forget I said anything.
The episode also doesn't go down that path because, like you said, it's full steam ahead from this moment forward for the next 5 episodes. There is no more dilly-dallying.
The morphos, who are the people in control of this society, they're little brains in vats with eye stalks coming out of them. They realize that Sabitha has failed, so they sentence her to death. Not the first sentence, or not the last, I guess, sentence of death in this story.
No. Not the last.
And not the least.
Sadly.
Either. Maybe it is the least.
Not the least.
Well, we yet again are reminded that people in early Doctor Who have zero peripheral vision because Barbara escapes. Sabitha's looking for her. And she's there. She's hiding behind a little column, but she should be able to see her.
Yeah, well, Sabitha's in a daze, She's in a daze. She has an excuse.
Barbara then realizes that Sabitha is Arbitan's daughter, and that she is actually in possession of the first key. Actually, the second key, because I believe the first one was actually still with Arbitan, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, Arbitan's like, I split the 5 keys up so that they, like, wouldn't be able to reuse the machine, but I kept one key here, and then we find out in the jungle one, the Screaming Jungle, that all the keys are actually identical, so that seems like a massive security oversight.
Yeah, just 3D print some more of those suckers,
I mean, if you've invented a machine that can control people's minds, I feel like you've got the ability to, like, 3D print or, like, replicate the keys.
Well, that's something interesting that this story does, because so much of Doctor Who, and really a lot of science fiction, like, posits that planets are just one, homogenous thing, right? I mean, just look at Star Wars. Like, you got your desert planet, and you got your city planet, and you got, just thing like that. But this one's actually interesting, where it's like Marinus does have these different countries and has these different societies that are obviously at different levels of technology.
Yeah, I mean, this is the really one of the first and only stories that has a planet that's got different peoples and different cultures on the same planet. Because you're right. Most planets other than Earth in Doctor Who are like homogenized cultures for some reason.
Yeah, and it's just like, even to this day, throughout Doctor Who's 50, what, 7 now year, 58-year history almost, like, this is probably one of the most fully fleshed out planets ever.
And, even still, we don't really know that much about it.
No, no, we don't. I wonder, I don't know, so I'll look it up here. I wonder if we ever return to Marinus. I'm sure there's more said on Marinus. Oh yeah, it's in a lot of comics, it looks like. Appearances TV The Aztecs? I don't remember that.
Probably just because they recap leaving Marinus at the end of this, because I think Aztecs is after this, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, Aztecs is next, so...
Oh right, Marinus be Mondas. I forgot about that because of that whole thing where the Vord are like related to the Cybermen.
In the one comic book, the like Vord are the predecessors to the Cybermen.
Yeah. Well, that's a rabbit hole.
Which, okay, I guess.
Yeah, what is that like? What does it matter? Like.
It's really just like, all right, I guess, sure.
Maybe they make
if that's how you want to do it.
Maybe they make it matter. Who knows? We haven't read it. At least I haven't. So.
Yet.
Yet.
New content every week till we die.
Well, Barbara, I think, then goes off on her own again for whatever reason, and she confronts Ian. She sees Ian. She's like, oh, thank God it's you. Ian has already been brainwashed by the morphos, so he decides to take her in to the morpho room.
Mm-hmm.
And there's actually mentioned, they kind of raised the stakes where the morphos mention that, like, given enough time, their original memories will fade and they'll just be, part of this society. So they do have, like, this time limit, so it is, like, a little more tense than maybe we're making it out or that it otherwise would be.
Yeah, amazing that Sabitha remembers her whole prior family, though, and life experience.
Yeah, isn't there, like, brainwashing kind of undone on her for some reason? I don't really remember, but...
I don't know.
The brainwashing is definitely undone on Ian, though, because Barbara is freaking out with the morphos, and she just smashes, I think, one of them, and then Ian snaps out of it, and he's like, oh my god. And then so Barbara, again, first companion to kill on screen, technically not on screen because they just cut it from it, but, like, to kill that we know of is Barbara.
Kills also the only remaining morphos. Commits actual successful genocide. The master has been trying to do this for years.
Did they say that they were the last
to kill off an entire
of
species?
Their kind?
I mean, they only exist in Morphoton, and these are the leaders of Morphoton. The morphos.
Maybe there's...
I can't imagine there are any other morphos, otherwise they would still be under mind control.
Maybe there's just like an underground movement of morphos that are like not cool with them taking over society and are like a band of freedom fighters.
Well, that'd be pretty weird, but like somebody should explore that in a
fanfic.
Fanfiction or a book or an audio or something.
Yeah, Big Finish, we know you're listening.
Because Big Finish gets all their best ideas from us, of all
exactly.
people.
Well, that's how they get the key. Now, I completely forgot about this, but Sabitha and Altos become little, story-specific companions here. And I really liked that they have sort of allies on the inside.
Right. Well, kind of.
Wow, you really have to do Sabitha and Altos dirty like that, huh? With a kind of.
Yep. What are you gonna do about
They're
it?
not exactly compelling characters, but in a way, that's almost, in a way that, like, it almost endears you to them. That, like, yeah, they're just these sort of, I don't know. They have Barbara and Ian and Susan and the Doctor's back, come what may.
Yeah, I guess they just met these people, and they're like, "Yeah, these are the people who we believe will bring salvation
I
to
mean,
this
what other
planet."
choice do they have? They failed completely. They were under the Morpho's control.
Yeah, but maybe they liked it.
I, for one, welcome our new Morpho
I,
overlords.
for one, yeah, exactly, exactly. Look, I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I don't know what I'm
I
saying,
know. I know
actually.
what I'm
Anyway,
saying is that this is a blast from the past. I completely forgot that deduction was a page on the TARDIS wiki. It's linked here. I imagine that this is actually probably how we originally encountered it all those years ago. Is that it's linked from the Keys of Marinus page. Barbara deduces Sabitha's Arbitan's
well,
missing daughter, and deduces is linked to the page on deduction.
I wouldn't be surprised if the grapes page is linked from this episode too. A little backstory for the grapes page for people who probably don't know this because I don't think we ever said this on air. But the grapes page on the TARDIS wiki is the first interaction that I can remember us having with just the like wide-ranging scope of the TARDIS wiki outside of just delineating the episodes of the show. The very first page, weird page that we found / saw was grapes. And I remember that quite distinctly for some reason.
And I bet it was from this episode too, because it is linked on the page. Barbara eats grapes. That's what it
Nice.
says under the references section. So I don't imagine that there were grapes before this. This is only the 5th story of Doctor Who ever. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's probably when we discovered it.
There's definitely no grapes in Unearthly Child. Definitely not Daleks. Almost assuredly not in Edge of Destruction. And I would assume not in Marco Polo.
Well, do you know what could tell us for sure?
The TARDIS wiki. I'm looking at the page.
Do they have
Oh yeah, they do have Keys of Marinus. So it's It is the first.
I was going to say, is there a grapes list of appearances page?
Oh, well, grapevines have their own page too.
Okay, we're getting distracted.
The Master once took over a vineyard on a farm planet, while his companion Cold Jarnish sought to save the planet's people.
Okay, we're pretty far off the beaten path here. So they come up with this kind of insane plan to send the Doctor ahead 2 stops, which turns out to actually be going ahead 3 stops.
I don't know. Beats the heck out of me.
Because I'm pretty sure they say 2. He's going to skip ahead 2 stops. But that would have put him in the Snows of Terror, which he wasn't in that.
Maybe he's just like
he wasn't in that at all.
maybe he just like spends 3 seconds in the Snows of Terror and he's like, I'm out, forget this, and just goes straight to Millennius.
I mean, after Ian examines the prince in Marco Polo and just that whole story leading to like 6 episodes of just them being forced to walk alongside the TARDIS with Marco Polo back to like his homeland. The instant he saw snow, he's probably like, nope, I'll leave this one to Ian and Barbara and Susan.
Imagine if they got there and they're like, well, the Doctor already took care of this one, right? So we can just go to the next one. They just go to the next stop without the key and you can't go back.
That nearly happens a like non-trivial amount of times throughout the story.
Yeah. I guess you could just go back to the island and just start over, right? Like, it wouldn't be that hard.
Yeah, like, is it a loop? Could you just keep going? I don't know.
Get back and Arbitan, who actually, did we mention that Arbitan dies? As soon as he
I
sends
think
them,
we're
as soon
dead.
as he sends them, a Vord, might have even been Yartek, I don't remember, just stabs him to death.
He's just instantly dead.
This is what I miss from Doctor Who is that like I don't know, there's just it's not even when you think about it, it's not funny at all that like because that's the whole setup of the plot is that the Vords are bad, Arbitan's, sending them on this journey and they're trying to kill Arbitan and take control of the machine, so it makes sense that they would kill him, but like I don't know, there's just something funny about it.
It's funny because of how much of a non sequitur it is. From Arbitan giving them the bracelets and then they leave and he's like, ah yes, they'll succeed, and then he just out of nowhere gets stabbed. Like,
Yeah, maybe it's the schizophrenia of the narratives that I miss, where it's like you never know what's going to happen next, but it's like it's in a good way most of the time. Sometimes it's in a bad way, but most of the time it's just like you're on your edge, you're on the edge of your seat. It's such a slow paced show for a lot of the episodes, but it puts you on the edge of your seat somehow.
because like the classic show, this is something that you lose when you go from the serialized to the episodic nature. The serialized, for all we hate the episodes that drag it out to get to 4 episodes, sometimes you just, some writers approach 4 episodes, 6 episodes by being like, okay, we have to drag it out to reach 6 episodes. Some writers, like Terry Nation and this, are like, how many crazy things can I fit into 6 episodes? Let's see. Like snorts a line of cocaine. He's like, let's go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you never know what you're in for when you start that first episode. When you open up Doctor Who, you never know if you're going to get a slow, brooding, dissertation on life for 6 episodes, or if it's just going to be like fast, like pedal to the metal, 0 to 60 in the first 10 minutes, and we don't ever push on the brakes till we leave.
Be fast, W furious.
So the rest of the group, minus the Doctor, and this is clearly like from a Doylist perspective, William Hartnell taking his vacation for 2 weeks. The rest of the gang goes to the Screaming Jungle.
Susan heads off first. I think she arrives first for some reason, and she is freaked out by the jungle because it's just screaming at her, and it attacks her. Right? The vines, they kind of attack her.
Susan thinks it's a snake. And she's like, oh my god, get it off me. And Barbara comes in with blood in her eyes, like, and just brutally murders this snake / vine. Just like, I didn't realize how much bloodlust Barbara
There's a dark side
had.
to Barbara. Yeah, a side that when she is written out in the chase makes you go like, maybe she shouldn't be around children. Like. Susan also has this line, actually, this is before they part with the Doctor, where she says, like, I don't like to say goodbye. And, like, just knowing what happens, what's going to happen, is like, oh my god. Oh my god. And that's the thing, like, just thinking, I know this is outside the scope of this story because it's in Dalek Invasion of Earth, like, the classic show, it had, like, just think of Susan's write-out and how impactful that was. Maybe because it was the first one I watched at least, but, like, I don't know, like, there's so much emotion packed behind that the new show, for all that it does well, like, almost doesn't match. In a way. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I don't know. I think in the reboot they telegraph the write-outs a lot less. In the classic show, because of the serialized nature, you could, like, from episode 1 be like, no, Tegan's definitely not leaving in this episode. It's not like we're going back to Heathrow Airport. Wink. Whereas in the reboot, it's like if they're leaving in the episode, and then just at the end, they're like, "Oh yeah, goodbye."
Yeah. Well, they come across this temple, and I believe they see like a little idol inside or something. So they go in. Barbara goes in, and she triggers some sort of trap. What was it? Oh, right.
It's the statue outside,
And it like, yeah, like
which
it
yeah,
wraps its arms around her and just like, it's a trap door or something. Like it flips around and she's behind the wall now, so they have to go rescue her.
the second the second rotating wall in this
Yeah,
episode to get them. You'd think they'd learn their lesson.
they do have the key though. Barbara recovers the key, but they realize that it's a fake.
Yeah, but not before half of them go on. Like, Susan and Altos are like, "All right, meet you at the next stop. Bye bye." And then Sabitha's like, "Oh, key's fake." And Barbara's like, "Shoot, son. Ian and I will stay to find the key. You go ahead and tell Altos and Susan what happened." He's like, "Okay." Or she's like, "Okay."
So they go behind the wall, or I believe Barbara is already behind the wall because she, got screwed over by the statue. And Ian follows, and they're sort of in
Yep.
this other part of the jungle, I guess, although it looks more tamed. It looks more like a garden or something.
Yeah, and they meet the like second of like four mysterious old men in this story.
Yeah, they meet this weird old hermit who tries to kill them. They both get captured, and Barbara almost dies.
Then he gets like strangled by the forest, and he's like, "Oh my god, the forest! It's killing me! My own creation!" And they save him. He's like, I guess you're good guys because you saved me." And they're like, "Ah!" But they didn't save him soon enough because he's
And
dying.
he does die, but he gives them one little
And
last clue as to where the key is, which is a chemical formula,
yes,
DE302. They don't know it's a chemical formula yet, though. They go into his little room. And they immediately see a safe, and they're like, "Oh, sweet, DE302." So they try it on the safe, the combination lock, but it doesn't work. And so they decide to scour the room from head
deceived.
to toe. But then, when nightfall arrives, the forest comes alive. They realize that from reading the old man's notes that he was experimenting on the forest and accelerating the growth of the plants at night.
Nice going.
So the accelerated growth begins to take
Nice.
over, the building, threatening to kill Ian and Barbara. And they realize in the nick of time that the DE302 is a chemical formula. Find the key and get out of there.
Into the snow.
Yeah.
Just whiplash.
Yeah, freaking thanks, Arbitan. I don't know how much control Arbitan had over the locations and the placements, but like if he had a lot or total control, like, and he just flings you into like a frostbitten wasteland, howling winds, just gale force, blizzard.
Yeah, with no like he didn't warn you at all that like you would be going from the extremes of human survivability from one location to the next.
Imagine if the final key just placed you in Millennius, but like somewhere in Millennius, right? It's probably a big city. So like imagine if you had to spend days upon days searching for the key. Or imagine if Millennius was like the scale and size of like New York and you were just placed in the middle with no clue as to where the key is.
I would just give up at that point. I'd be like, you know what,
Not
dog? Like,
even
nah.
worth it.
But actually, though, I'd be like, nah, you know what? No. Could be here for years.
Well, anyway, the Snows of Terror. Barbara is dying of hypothermia. And then they meet another mysterious man who rescues them.
Mm-hmm.
He has this weird flex. So he's obviously this sort of mountain man. He lives out in the snows on the mountains and stuff, and he lives alone. Obviously, just sort of this hunter gatherer guy. He tells them that he saved them. That he lives out there. The nearest town is whatever he says, 3 miles away. And then he has this like really weird flex where he goes, "Last year I broke the back of a wolf with my bare hands," which is obviously to demonstrate how, his strength and stuff like that. But it's just like, there's so many different components to it. It's like last year, and it's like he broke the wolf's back. Well, it's like, what's the context? Like, is the wolf okay? Like, I assume not, because you broke its back, but like, why'd you do it? Was it attacking you?
Hunting? Food?
Maybe he was hunting the wolves. I don't know. It's just like, there must be easier prey than wolves, right? Out in the mountains.
It didn't really look like there were any other prey on that mountain, to be honest.
Look, I'm sure if you got, down on your hands and knees in the snow and dug enough, you'd come across some sort of, I don't know, mountain edible plants, some tubers or something.
Look, he's a meat eater, okay? Tubers, plants, they're not gonna cut it. They're not gonna cut it for him. Whatever his name was.
Yeah, all right. I mean, he looked like he had a big supply of raw meat on hand. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's a good thing about living out in the cold, frozen wastes. Is like, you just freeze that stuff. You don't have to cook it. You just eat it frozen, kind of like.
You just leave it outdoors; it'll freeze.
Yeah, exactly. Kind
don't
of
even
like
need a refrigerator.
What is that? I forget what it is. That like frozen whale blubber, like.
Lard?
No.
Wait, that's not frozen.
No, it's I forget what it is, what it's called, but it's like, yeah, a lot of Native Alaskans, even now, still eat it.
I am like beyond not the person to ask about anything meat or blubber related.
All right, I don't know why I'm even bringing this up, but whatever.
Great, I guess we'll put it in the show notes.
The guy mentions that he saw Arbitan and Altos.
Altos and Sabitha.
Yes, this episode, like a lot of Classic Who, names its characters very similarly. Luckily, it was only Arbitan and Altos, but it even has the other problem that Classic Who had, as well as naming the characters similarly, which is that a lot of the characters look the same, especially when we get to the city of Millennius.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, Susan and Sabitha, he says, are out in a cave, and Altos is just like out in the snow.
Helping them? Looking for them? One of the two.
Ian decides to go and find Altos himself, but the man gives him a sack to bring with him. He says it's like supplies or something like that, if I remember correctly, but it's not.
Surprise, it's raw meat!
Right, which Ian finds out when he rescues Altos, who is just dying again of hypothermia out in the blizzard. Meanwhile, back at the house, the guy, just as soon as Ian leaves, just attempts to rape Barbara, I guess, is what it is.
I don't know.
Or attack her in some form. A little dark for
He's attacking
Doctor
her
Who.
somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, he's a bad guy.
She finds the keys in his drawer.
And then she's like, hey, you stole these from Sabitha, didn't you? And he's like, no.
Yeah, he tries to play it off real cool, like, yeah, those have no value anyway, so, like, who cares? But then she's like, all right, then I guess I'll just take them. And he's like, no.
Just kidding, they have value to me. Just kidding.
And only to me. Anyway, Ian and Altos come back, rescue Barbara, and they decide to head off into the caves where Sabitha and Susan are also dying, also of the cold, and are
basically force the guy to take them there.
Yeah, they're heading further into the caves, and I don't know. I mean, at this point in the episode, I think of the story, this is where a lot of Doctor Who, classic Doctor Who stories, especially 6 episode ones, get boring. But to me, I don't know, the Snows of Terror, I think, was my favorite one of the 6.
Oof. Not my favorite. Gonna have to disagree with you.
Yeah, I remember
I
really.
mean,
Yeah, go on.
I was gonna say, I think my favorite is probably Sentence of Death.
Yeah, that was definitely both of our favorites the last time we watched. I don't know why we're talking about this now instead of at the end, but like, yeah, it was weird to me that that this time around I didn't particularly care for the whole Millennius arc.
The Millennius
Yeah,
arc.
I was more into the Screaming Jungle and the Snows of Terror. Weirdly enough, I just really liked. Again, there's so much out of left field stuff that's just like, yeah, this is what it is. Like how they go into the caves now, and there's this like, God, I can't even speak, but there's just this like, there's these knights, freaking Templar in the caves.
Yeah, the Grail
Yeah,
Guardians from Indiana
yeah,
Jones.
and it's just like, what is this? Like, what am I watching at this moment in time? But then you're like, all right, whatever, I'm here for this ride.
You're fine. You're like,
Yeah,
fine.
you are. And it's great. It turns out to be amazing. And they go above and beyond. Terry Nation, the one and only, goes above and beyond, adds some interpersonal drama when they go into the caves and they're following Sabitha and Susan, and they have to cross this little tightrope. So that obviously adds to the tension, right? There's this existential dread. Literally, their existence is on the line because they're crossing this bridge that looks like it could snap at any moment. And then Terry Nation, the masterful storyteller that he is, has the mountain man disassemble the bridge, cutting the ropes and making the bridge useless. And
To absolutely no one's surprise but theirs.
it kind of caught me off guard. I saw it coming from like maybe a few seconds away. I was like, oh, okay, obviously he's going to cut the ropes. But before that, I don't know. Kind of caught me off guard. Guess that says more about me than the episode, but hey.
Yeah, I don't think that says more about you. But hey, alright.
It was also like, you could probably just jump over that chasm, like it wasn't that big. I guess you wouldn't want to on the ice because it's
No.
slippery, but like, yeah.
Terry Nation really likes to put his uncrossable chasms into his stories. Throw back to the Daleks when they just like get trapped in that cave with that uncrossable chasm and they're like, oh no.
Yeah, this was the uncrossable chasm redemption arc, honestly, because that was such a slog in the Daleks. It was such a when they're in the caves, or when they're in the underground, whatever it was, the sewer system, getting into the city. My God.
I barely even remember that, honestly. Like, my memory of that is so slim because it was so boring that I wiped it from my mind, even though we've watched it twice.
This is much better in comparison.
Not difficult at all.
They decide to go further into the caves to search for the key, or a way out. And they come across the key encased in a block of ice, surrounded by 4 knights.
Really convenient. Like, really convenient that just in this random cave that they decided to, like, hole up in, the key happens to be here
Wasn't there
in this
actually some
cave.
dialogue about like why the key was in the cave or something like that? Or it's like why they knew, they're like, maybe I'm just making this up, but I recall them being like, the key has to be in the cave and here's why or something, and they kind of touch on it. I
don't
don't completely
remember.
remember either. Maybe I'm just tricking myself into thinking that happened.
No, the memory cheats.
Anyway, they find something else convenient, an unfreezing device.
Neat.
Barb-
Nicer than to put it with the key that's frozen
Barbara
in the
mentions
ice.
that it's probably connected to an underground volcanic spring, kind of like the ones in Iceland. Which,
Yeah, and Antidus and Sabitha just go, "Where's Iceland?" And she goes, "Oh, never mind."
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever like looked at the landscape of Iceland, but I don't know. There's something weirdly fascinating about it. It's like Iceland is obviously one of the most volcanic places on Earth, but like yeah, the landscapes they just look like otherworldly almost.
Yeah, Iceland is somewhere that I've actually wanted to visit for a long time, but never had the ability to. Really pretty country.
Yeah, one of my friends, who I'm not really friends with anymore, but I was like a couple years ago, just went to Iceland at one point. I remember it was just like I was gonna hang out with him or something like that, and he was just like, "Yeah, dude, I'm in Iceland." And I was just like, "What?" And he was just like, "Yeah, I just went to Iceland."
Sorry, can't hang out. I'm in Iceland. Well, that's one way to get out of societal obligations, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, man. I just ditched for Iceland.
Well, they decide to unfreeze the key, but it's taking a long time, so they decide to also use this the downtime to repair the bridge with what were these? This was so weird because the dialogue says that they were logs, but why would there be logs in a frozen cave?
Quite frankly, I have no
I
idea.
thought they were just, I didn't believe the dialogue. Screw that. I don't care how much evidence there is. Logs plus frozen cave doesn't add up. So I just assumed that they were like stalagmites or something.
Maybe they were logs frozen in stalagmites.
Yeah, maybe like proof that this used to be like a forest, but then like geographical shifts or whatever froze it. Kind of like how, deserts used to be forests or whatever, like in real life or, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Or like, yeah, how you find like dinosaur corpses like in the desert and it's like, yeah, this used to be like a prehistoric lake or something.
Be kind of a weird thing for Terry Nation to just throw into this episode, just some geological processes in the background of the episode, but I wouldn't put it past him either.
So they repair the bridge, and I guess Susan is like the lightest, of them. So she decides to cross first, has a really terrible time of it.
Yeah, because this week's delineated character who's scared of everything is Susan. Sometimes it's Barbara, but Barbara's committing straight murder this week, so can't be Barbara. Can't really reconcile being scared with committing that much murder.
And it can't be Ian because he's the one who always does everything. Can't really give that role to Barbara or Susan. No, no, it always has to be Ian.
There's a line in the Screaming Jungle where Barbara just like she doesn't directly call Ian out for being just a hardcore misogynist, but she says something like, just because we're a woman doesn't mean we can't do anything, Ian.
Yeah, yeah.
And he just kind of just brushes this off and goes, eh. Which, okay, I guess.
I forgot, like, to what extent, Ian was really the one who did almost everything. Whereas Susan,
including getting accused of murder.
yeah, whereas Susan and Barbara were honestly left to the wayside so much. And that's actually, I remember Carol Ann Ford at one point uh, commenting about, like, yeah, that's kind of why she was disappointed with Susan's character of, like, she was promised to be this, like, psychic and have a little bit more to her, but it wasn't really how it panned out.
They also only ever mention the psychic thing in the Sensorites, where it could easily be explained as a byproduct of being around, I don't know, the Sensorites.
Yeah, the sense sphere. The hardest, like, planet to say in Doctor Who. You really have to pause. The sense sphere. Otherwise, it just runs into the next word.
The Sense Sphere. This Sense Sphere.
I sense fear in you trying to say the sense sphere. It's too hard.
Sense Sphere. Sense Sphere.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, anyway. Yeah, I don't know why I got distracted by that.
Anyway, the knights are chasing them. There's a big whole tense scene. Very exciting, very exhilarating. They get out. They reconfront the dude from the Big Lebowski.
There's a reference.
That's what that movie's called, right? Okay, good, good. The knights are sawing their way into the hut with their swords.
And then, so, like, the guy grabs Barbara and he's like, you can't leave without Barbara or I'll kill her. And they're like, all right, we won't leave then. And then he just, like, in the most convenient way possible, just gets stabbed through the door while the knights are sawing through the door. They just, like, accidentally stab him through the door. And he's like, oh. And they're like, well, we guess we better go. So they leave, and then this is when I'm like, okay, so how do the travel bracelets really work? Because it only dumps Ian into the middle of this vault where the key is. Everybody else is God knows where in Millennius. So maybe it was like kind of a situation where, like, if Ian hadn't serendipitously landed in the vault, they wouldn't really have known where the key was. I think the Doctor even mentions when he shows up in Sentence of Death that, like, he had to figure out where the key was when he landed.
Yeah, so, like, they could have spent years in Millennius. Literal years.
The Doctor, yeah, because the Doctor, I think, had only just figured it out. And the guy he was working with, like, sped up the plan to try steal it that day that Ian happened to arrive. And, like, that wasn't the plan, because they had only just figured out where it was and didn't really have a plan yet.
Well, Ian winds up in the wrong place at the worst possible time because someone's trying to steal the key. As soon as he gets into the room, he gets knocked out and framed for the murder of the guard, Ephraim.
Right, and then he's like, why would I, like, stay here if I killed him or took the key? And their explanation is just maybe he got a good hit in before he died, which, like, what?
Yeah, so Ian is talking to Taryn, who is like the investigator for the case or whatever. And that's his sort of theory. He also reveals that...
Yeah, a name that Terry Nation clearly was inspired by later on with Tarrant.
Yeah, and wasn't that like wouldn't Terry Nation like put that name into stories or similar names because of Terry Nation, right? So he would go like Tarrant or Tarrant or something.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting that he would have his self-insert be this examiner guy.
Well, they're like, well, shoot, what are we going to do? And Ian's like, I need someone to defend me. And the Doctor just pops in and is like, that's me. I'm going to defend you.
Right, because according to this planet's laws, you're guilty until proven innocent. If you're accused, you're automatically guilty.
They still put you on trial,
Yeah, they
though.
do, but, like, imagine how much that would suck. Like, anyone could just accuse anyone, and you'd just be guilty from accusation.
Yeah, that straight suck. You're just walking down the street, and you just, like, somebody trips over your feet or something, like, shit.
Murderer!
Like, they just accuse you of murder right there. Like, oh, well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because then it's like, you know, then the burden of proof is on you to prove that you didn't commit murder, which, like, how do you prove that you didn't murder
Yeah, exactly,
someone?
which is exactly what Ian actually says here, where he's waving his finger in Taryn's face, and he's like, the proof's on you, buddy. You gotta prove that I murdered him. And he's like, no, I don't. You do.
Yeah, on this planet, it's the other way around, buddy old boy.
Yeah.
Ian's like, well, shoot, I really
You're
thought
not at
that
Coal
would
Hill
work.
School anymore, Ian.
Can't go murdering people and getting away with it now, Ian.
Yeah, that was supposed to be a "you're not in Kansas anymore" reference, but I didn't know where Coal Hill School was. London, probably, but yeah,
London,
I think.
think. Well, anyway, they, like, go to meet this lady whose name I forgot, who was related to the guard or was, like, dating someone on the investigation. I don't know. I don't remember.
No, this was was Eisen's wife.
Yeah, I think her
or
name's
no,
Carla.
Aiden. Sorry. Who's Eisen? Oh my goodness. Oh, Eisen is the prosecuting attorney. So, but then there's Aiden, who is Aiden again? Is married
Is
to
married to
Carla, but
Carla.
who what? Why was he involved?
I think he's
Oh, it was Kala, not Carla. Oh, he was just a
oh
conspirator, I
Carla.
guess, with Eisen.
Yeah, he was the
Right,
relief
right, right,
guard.
right. He was the relief guard.
So the Doctor surmises slash proves later on that he must have hidden the key in the vault somewhere, and he knows where it is, but he can't reveal it yet because, duh, that would just like implicate Ian because they'd just be like, "Well, Ian told you where it was."
Yeah, and they have this whole like Sherlock moment where they like reenact. They go through the steps, except it's devoid of the Moffat-esque, making it better than I don't know anything on from the 11th Doctor / Sherlock era.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong.
Doctor Who is at its peak when it's devoid of the Moffat-esque. Yeah, I said it.
There's a controversial statement. You should tweet that. Just that
All
statement
right.
exactly. I mean, some men, like to watch the world burn, and some men like to light the flame. So Kala accidentally, like, sort of gives away some things, but not quite, and then just she does give away things because as soon as they leave, they just turn around and like look through the keyhole and see
Aiden beating Kala.
what's his name, Aiden. Yep. He slaps her because he's like, "Why were they here? How did they know?" She's like, "They didn't know anything."
Everyone who's in on this plan like has this sort of disposition of like tee, like they'll be accused and they'll be like, "What? No, it couldn't have been me," and then they'll like turn like I don't know 45 degrees and be like,
So Susan and Barbara like bust into the room, and Susan is just like, "Well, we know where the key is," and Aiden is just like, "You couldn't have. You don't know where the key
he
is."
gives himself away.
These are the worst co-conspirators like in the history of Doctor Who.
Of co-conspirating. Eisen is just the mastermind behind the plan. Is just like, oh my god, like you guys, like he actually does it too. He does the same thing.
Yeah, so this is completely like not legitimate legal practice, but the Doctor puts he puts Kala, is it no, he puts Sabitha on the stand and has her show
Right.
one of the other keys, and he's like, "This is what the key looks like, right?" And she's like, "Yes." And he's like, "Do you know who took the key from this planet?" And she's like, "Yes. It's Aiden." And everyone goes, "What?" And Aiden goes, you couldn't possibly know, I mean, you don't know anything."
Yeah, he goes like, "How did you know that I?" And then he dies, and that's not, good enough for them. Which I guess it wouldn't be. It's circumstantial still, even though he literally almost gives it away.
Yeah, I mean, they even bring this up. They're like, "Hey, he like basically implicated himself. You can't possibly think that Ian is still involved." And they're like, "Yeah, Ian's involved. Obviously, they were co-conspirators, right?"
Which just goes to show you, like, how much, I don't know, just how much the system of, like, guilty until proven innocent just doesn't work, right? Because the only reason Ian is even involved in this is that he was accused. That's not true. He was there with the murder weapon in his hand, but
He was
know.
knocked out.
yeah. Anyway, Kala is weeping over Aiden's dead body, but at the same time going like,
Yeah, and then into the next episode, they're like, "We're gonna run some psychometry to find out like who fired the weapon that killed Aiden." Kala starts sweating bullets, like, And then she
Yeah,
decides to make the dumbest play, like 5,000 IQ, and kidnap Susan.
yeah, this is actually the cliffhanger to the Keys of Marinus, which is the final episode, right? So it's the cliffhanger going from Sentence of Death to Keys of Marinus, which I remember 7 years ago we were like, why is it Sentence of Death and not Death Sentence? and 7 years later, I still don't have an answer.
I think it's to match the like title format of the other episodes: the Snows of Terror, the Sentence of Death, the Keys of Marinus, the Screaming Jumble,
The jungle,
Jungle,
the jungle of
Velvet
screaming.
Web, the Sea of Death.
Yeah, it should be the jungle of screaming and the web of velvet. But it's not. Terry. What do you have to say for yourself, Terry?
He's dead.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah.
That was a very low key. Anyway,
Yeah. I guess it's not surprising. I mean, when was Terry Nation born? Who knows? Let me just check. 1930 to 1997. Oh, so he was only, he was 67 when he died, so fairly young, I guess. But, yeah. Anyway, yeah, it's Kala who kidnapped Susan, if you couldn't guess. Maybe that's why
it was great.
maybe that's why I didn't care as much for this part of the story, because like I kind of remembered it more. Like I had no memory of Snows of Terror and the Screaming Jungle, none whatsoever. I did kind of remember these two though. Like I remembered it was Kala. Like kind of midway through, it was like, it's Kala, isn't it? Like, you know.
Oh, I didn't remember, so maybe that's why I still like these last two episodes. I didn't remember that it was Kala.
Yeah, it's her. They go and visit her, and she gives herself away accidentally by revealing that she knows Susan called them and revealed her hostage situation.
Yeah, she calls her other co-conspirator, and he's like, "Look, we don't need Susan anymore. Kill them, kill her."
But they bust back in just in time and save her.
Yeah, and then they decide to tell the doctor that she was kidnapped, and Susan's really excitedly telling him the story of how she was rescued, and he's just like, guys, you really didn't want to tell me this?
It's fine. It all worked out in the end. And that's all that matters, right? Let's go with that.
Okay. You say so.
Well, Ian's charges are obviously cleared.
Yep.
And they're good to go.
They give him
So
the
they
key.
do.
And they're like, we're going to vanish. And he's like, how are you going to do that? And they're like, watch this. Bloop.
Watch this. And then the two guards have this moment of like, no one will believe, if we tell this to people, like, we're going to get thrown in the loony bin. And they're like, so this is sort of just a secret between them, I guess, from here on out.
Is this the first? No, because I think it happened in the Daleks. Is this the first we can't ever talk about watching the Doctor literally disappear moment in Doctor Who? I think they did it in the Daleks, though.
Yeah, I think they
Maybe
did.
it's a Terry Nation likes that joke.
Yeah. And that's that. They get back to Marinus, and we're reminded, hours later, that this whole thing was to counteract the Void. I don't know if it was just me, but maybe you had the same thing too. Of like, you don't forget what it's all for, but you get lost along the way. Like there's so much stuff happening along the way that you're like, oh yeah, this was all to get the keys to stop the Void.
You're like, oh yeah, that's what the keys were for.
It's okay, because this is the funniest episode of the bunch, where like the scene where Yartek is pretending to be Arbitan is just comedy gold. Like, and
Yeah, this is just great. This is one of the top 10 Doctor Who moments for me. It's
wow,
so
wow,
good.
I wouldn't go that far, but wow.
Top 10 comedic Doctor Who moments.
So they're back. I believe it's Ian and Susan,
Barbara.
or Ian and Barbara
This is Ian and
who
Barbara.
go see who go try
I think
and
it's Barbara.
I thought it was Susan, but whatever. It's Ian and someone. Yeah, just going to show you how like how much of a non-character Bryn and
How
Susan are.
interchangeable they are.
Yeah, which is a shame because, like we mentioned before, there's so much that could have differentiated Ian or not Ian, Susan and Barbara, yet they almost fell into like this sort of same role, which sucks.
Damn, I have a note here that it sounds really funny, but I have no idea what exactly it's referring to. But the note is the Doctor laughing as he smacks a board is funniest Doctor Who moment ever. But I don't remember what that means.
I don't remember what it means.
Good job one day ago, me.
So yeah, they go and try and give the keys to Arbitan, not knowing that he's dead. And it's just Yartek
Wow.
like wearing Arbitan's robe with the hood up and like kind of facing away from them, and he's like, "All right, give me the keys."
And they're like, you seem different.
So it's nothing. It's just your imagination. I'm feeling a little sick. Now give me the keys.
It's, it's Little Red Riding Hood showing up and the wolf pretending to be the grandmother, like, it's only me. Don't worry. And so Ian's only giving him the final key because they actually got the first 4 keys, 1 from Altas and 3 from Sabitha and Altas. So they're only waiting for the final key. So Ian just chucks it on the ground. He's like, "All right," and whoever he's with is like, "No, wait, you can't." And Ian's like, let's just leave." So they like leave, and they're like power walking down the corridor because Ian knows what he's done. Like, power walking away. And they get to the Doctor, and he's like, "You did what?" And Ian's like, "Don't worry, I gave them the fake key." And Sabitha's like, that means the machine's gonna blow up, right? And they're like, "Wait, what?"
Yartek is like, finally, my life's goal within reach. I can finally free my people from the shackles of Arbitan's control for good. Sticks the little USB dongle into the machine and meets his fiery end.
Yeah, like more evidence that they're not the villain is the fact that they also just like let Ian and Barbara leave. Although the Doctor kind of surmises that they did this because actually they'll be able to control Ian and Barbara's mind once they have the machine working. But you know,
There's no basis for that.
there's no basis for that theory.
Imagine like I can imagine the Vord like the game man like mission briefing meeting like before they embarked on this final quest to save their people of like, all right, we have to do this. Like, there's no two ways about it. Arbitan is a menace that has to be stopped, and we might even have to kill along the way, but we have to.
Mm-hmm. We have to do what must be
and they
done.
even kill in like a humane way, right? Stabbing at the nape of the neck to like cause instant death.
And what do they get for their troubles? Blown up.
Yeah, exactly. Blown to smithereens. And they look on as the Citadel crumbles. And they're like, all in the day's work. Good job here.
Another society saved.
Yeah.
As the castle crumbles in the background.
Yeah. It's like at the end of a fistful of dollars when he's just like he's hiding out on that wagon watching as like the town burns. Just like another day well spent.
In all honesty, Marinus is like ripe for a return on the TV show, exploring like so many reboot plot lines and arcs have tried to delve into the Doctor, like what happens to the society after the Doctor leaves. And like Marinus is the perfect subject for this because again, the Vord, besides killing, what's his
Arbitan.
name at the beginning, Arbitan, don't really do anything that evil. They let Ian and Barbara go. They're also subject to slavery by a mind control machine for the past, I don't know how many years.
It was like a couple thousand years, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like a couple thousand, yeah. So for the Doctor to come in, help restore this mind control machine, then blow up the Citadel, blow up like the Vord, or Yartek and his invasion party, like, be really interesting to see if that actually freed the Vord from their shackles of servitude, or if he made it worse for them. Bring Marinus back, have the Doctor land, and have her examine her actions from before in her lifetime. Could even really tie into the Timeless Child plot, because it's like at the beginning of her life, really, as the Doctor, something she did that was probably extremely morally gray, one of the first morally gray things she's done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. It'll never happen.
Bring back Marinus. My final note, because they leave, they like give Ian the key, the real key, and he gives it to the Doctor. I'm like, if Chris Chibnall had real balls, this key of Marinus would randomly come back 57 years later. The Doctor just reaches into her pocket, pulls out the key, and goes, what's this?
Exactly, unexplained. It just shows the key they just recreate the prop of the key, right? And it shows you the key. Doesn't explain it with dialogue. If you don't remember, that's on you.
And then she just shoves it back in her pocket, never to be seen again. Anyway, overall, I really liked this. I really enjoyed watching it again. I'm glad we picked it for this little Redux. I still think it's one of the best of the classic shows, one of Terry Nation's best scripts, in my opinion, just because it moves from point to point. It never feels like it drags at any point. It never feels like there's anything you can cut because it's padding or because it's just trying to get us to that 6 episodes. Like, it really feels like it earns those 6 episodes.
Yeah, and I remember back when we were deciding the episodes to watch for this whole Redux thing, I remember just saying, like, yeah, the final 2 episodes of Keys of Marinus are really good, so let's just watch that. But now having rewatched it, I think it's all really good. I really enjoyed, again, the middle episodes of it.
I think it's all really good. It's really clever how the fake key introduced in episode 3 halfway through comes back at the end as the resolution to the story. Like, bringing back something that was already introduced, not pulling some sort of resolution just, out of our pocket,
Well, he literally pulls it out of his pocket, so...
Anyone who was paying attention to that sentence knows what word I wanted to say but didn't because, PG podcast.
Allegedly. Yeah, it was good overall. I don't have too much more to say about it, I think, that I didn't already say.
Yeah, nothing else for me, I think. Except Britain's 10 actors.
Right. We can finally return to Britain. We can make our great return to Great Britain, the United Kingdom, so to speak. The amalgamation...
I like to imagine the UK immigration officers would just like bar us from entry. They instantly landed there from listening to our podcast and how many times the UK has been the butt of the joke on this podcast. But, anyway, Robin Phillips plays Altos. This is basically his biggest thing, except the Avengers. He was also in something called Candidate for Murder, which sounded interesting, and a David Copperfield TV show. And then a bunch of other TV shows I didn't recognize basically at all.
Yeah. Well, Stephen Dartnell plays, he plays Yartek. He also has another role in another Doctor Who story as John. I don't know who that
John
is.
What story?
I don't know, but it's something from 1964. IMDb doesn't say.
Well,
I guess I can look
IMDb.
him up on the TARDIS wiki to find out. He plays John in The Sensorites. I don't remember who John the
I
Sensorites
have
is.
absolutely no clue who that is. That could be literally any. That could be one of the Sensorites for all I know.
Yeah, just named John. The rest of them have like these sci-fi names, and there's just John.
That'd be great, actually. That'd be a great subversion.
Lex actually kind of does that. As much as I don't want to admit, like it does something right. It has Stanley Tweedle, and it has like Zev and Kai and like all these other people, and then it has like Stanley.
Blake 7 did that where it was like Kerr, Avon, Villa Restall, Blake.
Jenna.
Gan! Yeah, all sci-fi names, and then it's just like Blake, Jenna,
Yeah.
Avon, Villa.
Travis is actually the most funny one of those because, like, yeah, Blake is like Blake's not that all that common of a name. It kind of it does sound a little sci-fi as well. It's like, but then it's just like Travis. It's just like
Travis
right.
is even funnier when it's like Serverland Travis.
Yeah. Space Commander Travis.
Check out Zenith, the Blake 7 podcast.
The best thing we've ever put out. It is. Don't even try to dispute the claim.
Some of the early, I don't know. I think Inevitable is getting there. I think Inevitable is pretty good.
Maybe. I'm really glad that we are watching Lex for Inevitable and get to rail into it. But anyway, Stephen Dartnell played more than just Yartek and John. He also played Cobble in something called Oscar Wilde. I guess I don't know what that is, but it was from 1960. He was a sailor in the 1955 TV Othello. He played Meluish in Poison Island in 1965. And a bunch of other things. Not too many other things. He only has 11 credits according to IMDb. But that's
Amazing.
him.
Next up, I have Catherine Schofield as Sabitha. She's been in this. Also been in The Avengers, a TV show called Confession. Department S, which I've never seen and don't know what it is, but I recognize the name. And then a TV show called Wipeout that's not related to the Wipeout that's on now.
Oh, man. Have you seen Wipeout? It's pretty intense.
I think John Cena hosts it now.
Oh, wow.
Which, like, that's the perfect job for a man like John Cena. That seems like something he would have fun doing, is my point, I guess.
Yeah. Well, last and most certainly not least, we have George Kalouris playing Arbitan. I believe he was playing Arbitan.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, again, like, he has so many credits. Not again, I didn't say this actually, but he has 144 credits on IMDb, so I kind of lost track here. But, like, yeah, he's been acting, or he had been acting since the early 30s. He was in Citizen Kane. He has a really extensive career.
Who did he play in Citizen Kane? I mean,
Walter Parks Thatcher. I don't know who that is, but he played him.
Okay, I have a vague idea of who that is.
He was in Hotel Berlin, Confidential Agent. I'm just picking these names at random off the list. Sleep My Love, Joan of Arc, Killer Be Killed, The Assassin. Hey, he was in Doctor in the House, the predecessor to Doctor Who. No, that's not. Oh, and he was a Doctor at Sea. Wow.
Great.
Aggie, the 1956 TV series. Oh yeah, he's been in a lot. Pathfinders to Mars, Danger Man. Hey, he was a police commissioner in Danger Man. Maybe he was in The Prisoner. Oh my God. Just scrolling up. Oh, he was in Z Cars. Z Cars, as I like to call it.
The most prolific actor in the story is what you're saying.
Yeah, probably even more so than, William Hartnell.
Well, they're probably on the same level, I would say. Prolificness-wise, that's not a word.
He was in The Prisoner. He was in Checkmate. He played the man with the stick in Checkmate.
Who's the man with the stick?
I don't know, but he played him.
Great, perfect, thank you.
If someone's in Danger Man, they're, like, almost for sure in The Prisoner. Like, Patrick McGowan really wanted to play the mind games with that. Looked like he continued acting until the late 70s and into the 80s, actually. His last thing was in Mussolini, The Untold Story, a TV miniseries.
Huh,
Yeah, that's
well,
it.
lots of acting credits there. Let's see. So I actually have an email to read this week.
Nice.
Hey guys, just wanted to send a message of thanks for the podcast. A quick info dump on where I'm at. I'm listening to the Pandorica Opens/Big Bang. I'm pretty much just a new Who fan, and I've been listening through your catalog from Rose on. That being said, I've been taking cues from your conversations on which classic Who episodes to go back and watch and which to ignore. I think you guys really hit a good stride, and I love that you started going on side rants about yourselves or things you study, like poems or books that episodes or story points remind you of, and using the show notes to go check them out. Because of stuff in my life and the pandemic and all, I haven't watched any Jodie Whittaker yet, but I'm now in a place to power through it, so I'll be listening through your catalog and then watch the episodes and listen along when I get there. Keep up the good work, and thanks for killing hours and hours of my workday, Richard. Thanks, Richard. That's a really nice email, and I really appreciate you reaching out and letting us know where you're at and what are your thoughts on the show. I don't think Richard's emailed us before. I think this is actually his first email to us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I hope he hears this response. I hope he listens to this episode, because, yeah, he says he's pretty much just a new Who fan, so I hope he doesn't skip over this one, you know?
Well, he's taking the cues from our conversations on which classic Who episodes to go back and watch, and we picked these 7 episodes specifically because we thought that they would be fun for us to revisit, and that they're fun episodes and they're at least good. So I hope that he joins us on this little journey through these episodes and does listen.
Yeah,
and yeah, thank you. Thank you for reaching out, Richard. Really appreciate the kind words. Really means a lot. And hope you enjoy Jodie Whittaker. I know we did, and hope you do too. Or at least hope you find something to enjoy.
Yeah.
So that's all the emails for me this week.
Yeah, we didn't have any anything on social media for this show. We had a ton for the other one, for Lex.
We have a lot of emails for the other one too. I just looked. We have a lot of emails for the other one.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, so if you would like to email us, you can reach us at thedoctor@decadvegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on Keys of Marinus and next week's episode. You can find us on YouTube at Decadent Vegetable. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Spotify, and anywhere you find the podcast at Trust Your Doctor. Be sure to leave a rating if you like the show.
Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter at TYD Podcast, and follow us on Twitter. And next time we're going to be watching Tomb of the Cybermen. But until then, the end.